And there's a film on BBC2 shortly, Prizzi's Honour, starring Jack Nicholson and Kathleen Turner as two contract killers who fall in love, unaware that they share the same profession.
The fire has burned since yesterday afternoon. Local authorities claim...
Jack, 20 seconds to take off! All right.
This has been a KJCM News Update. Now stay tuned for Jack Gillian, the Nighthawk.
Evening viewing for New Year's Eve starts with a special Songs of Praise linking congregations in Buckinghamshire, New Zealand and New York.
Hello, we're having a party to celebrate 20 years of Gracious Sport. And we'd like you at home to join in the fun.
At 7:45, some mothers do have them.
You soon get the hang of it, don't you?
Then at 8:15, A Hazard of Hearts. Diana Rigg leads an all-star cast.
You cannot marry my son, of course. That is an absurdity. Besides, he will never marry. I'm his life.
Now it goes like this. Hi, I'm Jerry Hall, and on New Year's Eve, I'll be helping Clive James present his review of the decade. What a man Clive is.
And Clive and Jerry take us up to midnight when the chimes of Big Ben herald the 90s. Then from Lambeth Palace, the Archbishop of Canterbury delivers a message for the new decade. Our first film of the new year stars Michael Caine in The Ipcress File.
Lose that door, will you?
A smashing end to entertainment for New Year's Eve here on BBC One.
See that, Billy? No sweat. Seconds to spare. Okay, we're back with Dr. Nicholas McCrane.
Before that on BBC One, it's time for the news and sport with Martin Lewis and Rob Bonnet.
President Bush says the U.S. Army raid on the home of Nicaragua's ambassador to Panama was a screw-up. But he asks why the ambassador needed to keep grenades, rocket launchers and machine guns in his home. And 60 injured, 50 under arrest as Israeli police clash with peace protesters in Jerusalem. Good evening. President Bush has said American troops in Panama made a mistake when they raided the home of the Nicaraguan ambassador. It's a screw-up, the president admitted. It should not have happened. But Mr. Bush said the raid revealed that the ambassador was up to his eyeballs in heavy weapons, adding, "I don't know what they need rocket launchers for in a man's house." Nicaragua condemned the raid as an outrage and responded by expelling 20 American diplomats from the U.S. Embassy in Managua. They've been given 72 hours to leave the country.
American troops today were surrounding the house of the Nicaraguan ambassador, where they said they had found anti-tank weapons and automatic rifles, as well as small arms, much more than he needed for his own defense. The United States government expressed regret over the incident, and President Bush, who's on holiday in Texas, called it a screw-up, but questioned why the ambassador was, as he put it, up to his eyeballs in heavy weapons. The U.S. Army said it had done what it had to do.
Acting on very reliable information from a Panamanian citizen that the house contained a large arms cache, soldiers from Joint Task Force South moved to the location and surrounded it.
The overnight raid had lasted an hour, and in the course of it, some 40 American troops had searched the ambassador's house and pushed him aside. He protested strongly that it was a violation of the Geneva Convention, and his government retaliated.
Ante esta acción condenable,
President Daniel Ortega of Nicaragua expelled 20 American diplomats and ordered a 2/3 cut in the administrative staff of their embassy. But that's a side issue. Back in Panama, General Noriega remains holed up in the house of the papal nuncio. And with the Americans apparently taking so flexible a view of diplomatic immunity, it's not entirely out of the question they could go in and get him. Martin Bell, BBC News, Washington.
About 60 people, half of them foreigners, were injured when Israeli police fired rubber bullets, tear gas and water cannon to break up a peace demonstration in the old city of Jerusalem. Thousands took part in the protest, calling for Israel to end its occupation of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. 50 people were arrested.
The organizers had called for a peaceful demonstration. The Israeli government had urged people not to attend at all. Neither won the day. It started peacefully enough as about 20,000 Israelis Palestinians and 1,000 or so foreign visitors, including women and children, linked hands in a symbolic encirclement of Jerusalem's old city walls, accompanied by prayers for peace. Then, according to one foreign diplomat present, with no more provocation than a few chants from some of the demonstrators near the Damascus gate, the Israeli police opened fire with tear gas and plastic and rubber bullets. There were, in the words of an eyewitness, some pretty horrific scenes as the police waded in, lashing out at everyone. It was, said the diplomat, who's been an observer of many of the excesses of the Israeli security forces during the 2 years of the Palestinian uprising, one of the worst examples of unprovoked and excessive violence he had seen, like something out of Eastern Europe before the revolutions, according to another eyewitness. Even after the demonstration had been broken up, the police chased fleeing demonstrators with water cannons. The organizers say about 50 people were injured, and the Israeli police have, with the stink of tear gas still in the streets, ordered an inquiry into allegations by Israeli members of parliament who took part of brutality by the police. Keith Graves, BBC News in the Middle East.
Police in the Soviet Republic of Azerbaijan have fired on demonstrators demanding an end to local Communist Party rule. 1 person was killed, 155 injured. The demonstrators turned on the police, forcing them to drop their weapons and retreat. Local radio tonight talked of obstruction by opponents of restructuring, adding that the situation had stabilized but remained tense. From Moscow, Ben Brown.
The shootings happened in the town of Jalilabad, just 15 miles from the Soviet Union's border with Iran. Thousands of demonstrators had gathered outside the headquarters of the town's Communist Party, complaining about the power it wields. Until now, the fervor of most Azerbaijani nationalists has been targeted on neighboring Armenia in the dispute over who controls the territory of Nagorno-Karabakh. But this time, Azerbaijani anger was unmistakably directed at the Communist Party itself, a worrying development for President Gorbachev. Ben Brown, BBC News, Moscow.
A group of Romanian communists has called for the party to be dissolved. They condemned the brutality of Nicolae Ceausescu's rule and apologized for the hardships suffered by their countrymen. In Bucharest and the provinces, a new security network is being built up to safeguard the revolution from a return to the old regime.
It's been a long week for Romania's soldiers. They turned their rifles away from the crowds, then defended the revolution. Many who entered the town hall here in Arad before Christmas have stayed ever since in a makeshift dormitory for the People's Army. They're still the front line in mopping up pockets of resistance by small groups of the Securitate secret police. But the main security job in towns and villages across the country is by bands of civil guardsmen, ordinary citizens who check every car. They even need to guard the hospitals. The Securitate have been known to attack the wounded and destroy blood supplies. In Arad, the hospital is the responsibility of a group of engineers from a lathe factory. Their World War II Czechoslovakian rifles would be no match for the few remaining bands of Securitate, but these militiamen are the eyes and ears of Romania's revolution.
These people can see things, can observe terrorists trying to infiltrate somewhere. We know the important strategic points. That's what we got. The entrances, the roofs, the morgue.
At Arad's police headquarters, the head of the local Securitate is now under arrest. But such is the power of Colonel Rașina that as he's brought in to face the camera, the chief of the civilian police seems uneasy. The secret policeman is now called a terrorist and will stand trial with his deputy Lieutenant Colonel Salceanu, accused of helping a group of Securitate commandos who killed 17 and wounded 60 in this town.
Tonight in western Romania there are stories of sporadic fighting in the mountains not far from here. The rumours go on. The reality is a successful revolution. David Loyne, BBC News, Arad.
Romania's rulers have now abolished rationing of food and petrol. Success in supplying basic needs could be as important as satisfying political demands after the recent bloodshed.
The town of Brasov had a hard, sharp fight for freedom. 62 dead. Most killed as they stood as a human wall shielding troops from the Securitate secret police. Burials have taken place all week. 115 seriously injured are still in hospital. The army controls all strategic points. In Brasov, they sided immediately with the townspeople last week. The local committee for national salvation is running the town. An amateur but enthusiastic bunch of lawyers, teachers, car plant workers, a nurse and an actress. There's a pervading fear that the Securitate are holed up somewhere, armed and vengeful. The provisional government has claimed thousands have surrendered or been caught, but we managed to get access to some captured in Brasov. One caught by local people, suffering the consequences of years of resentment. He'll face a special military tribunal. He may possibly face execution. As will two caught by the army. People here have more reason than most in Romania to hate Ceausescu and his supporters. 2 years ago, they demonstrated against the regime. The Securitate retaliated, and then instead of meting out individual retribution, the whole town was punished by having the already meager rations cut to the bone. 5 eggs and 2 ounces of butter per person per month.
We haven't chocolate, and they haven't orange, and they haven't lemon, they haven't nothing for children.
Are some of those things coming now?
Yes, yes, yes. I hope and we hope that will be much better.
And though it does not look plentiful, it is better. And there's remarkable optimism. Kate Adey, BBC News, Brussels.
China has attacked Britain's decision to give 50,000 Hong Kong families the right to settle in this country and warned it could take retaliatory action. Senior Conservative backbenchers Robert Adley and Ivor Stanbrook have criticised the Foreign Office for failing to anticipate China's reaction. Mr. Adley said he'd predicted the Chinese would be enraged, and Ivor Stanbrook described the policy as a ghastly mistake. But the former Foreign Secretary, Sir Geoffrey Howe, tonight defended the decision. In a New Year message to his constituents, he said Britain was honouring its responsibilities to the colony. Now, with news of the day's sport, including a confrontation between Steve Cram and Peter Elliott, here's Rob Bonnet.
Liverpool have extended their lead at the top of the First Division despite another indifferent performance against modest opposition. A John Barnes goal was all they could manage against the bottom club, Charlton. David Platt's 16th goal of the season put Aston Villa on their way to victory against Arsenal. Matthew Le Tissier scored twice for Southampton in their home draw with Sheffield Wednesday, and Nottingham Forest's Brian Clough celebrated his 1,000th match as a manager with a win at Tottenham. So, at the top of the table, Liverpool are now 4 points ahead of Aston Villa, who swap places with Arsenal. Southampton go 4th, and Chelsea 5th after their 3-0 win at Luton. Norwich lost 1-0 at Crystal Palace. A recent change of personnel at Queen's Park Rangers seems to be paying off. They improved their league position once again today at the expense of Everton.
Queen's Park Rangers rarely figure amongst football's big spenders, so today the club were looking for something special from the first player to cost them £1 million. In an enthralling first half, they were given their answer. Roy Wegerle was simply in a class of his own. This 40-yard run and final pass to Andy Sinton gave Rangers a 9th-minute lead. Everton's heavy outlay, though, isn't bringing consistent results. They're still having to rely on more established faces like Kevin Sheedy, denied here only by Seaman's agility. So, faced with Wegerle bearing down on his goal yet again, Neville Southall took the only preventative measure. It rightly earned him a yellow card and the crowd's derision. After the break, Stuart McCall tried to revive Everton's fortunes, but the game ended with Barker exposing more uncertainties in the Everton defence and setting up Wegerle. Southall held on, but the damage had been done. Queen's Park Rangers 1, Everton 0.
And in Scotland, positions at the top of the Premier Division are unchanged. Rangers and Aberdeen both drew, but Celtic and Hearts both lost. Peter Elliott won his confrontation with Steve Cram in a 2-kilometre cross-country race at Durham. The win came just days before his departure for the Commonwealth Games in Auckland. The controversy over the England selectors' preference for Elliott ahead of Cram for the Games had dominated the event. From the start, Cram stayed within easy reach, but at the bell, Elliott struck out for home. And on the run-in, the Yorkshireman's determination gave him a victory to savour, with Cram caught on the line by Tony Morell, another man selected ahead of him for the Games. Wigan are through to Rugby League's Regal Trophy final for the 4th time in 5 years. They beat Castleford by 24 points to 10 in this afternoon's semi-final.
Wigan, so dominant during the 80s, ended the decade with a flourish by overrunning Castleford in a one-sided first half. Joe Lydon was first to score, darting onto Gregory's clever kick. Then, further disaster for Castleford as Larder's fumble left Dennis Betts with a clear run to the posts. Already 14-0 up, Wigan virtually guaranteed victory early in the second half when Betts' powerful run gave Sean Edwards a chance to score his 100th try in Wigan's colours. There was still time for Castleford and the unfortunate Larder to restore some pride, but Wigan were already out of reach.
The jockey Richard Dunwoody received his second suspension of the week after riding the Grand National favourite Brown Windsor at Newbury today. A 2-day ban was imposed for excessive use of the whip during the Save and Prosper chase. At the last, it seemed to be between Polyphemus, another national prospect, and Solid as a Rock. But then Dunwoody urged Brown Windsor to a late run.
Brown Windsor coming to challenge now as the race towards the line. Is Brown Windsor coming to challenge Polyphemus? Polyphemus holding Brown Windsor at the line. Polyphemus is the winner from Brown Windsor. Third was Solid as a Rock.
Residents and rescue workers who helped in the aftermath of the Lockerbie air disaster are amongst those named in the New Year honours list. Other awards include a knighthood for the former Liberal leader David Steele. This from Carol Walker.
More than 20 of those who showed outstanding courage and dedication after Flight 103 exploded over Lockerbie are honoured. The Scottish Office said the names reflect a cross-section of the people and organisations who coped with the tragedy. They include John Boyd, the former Chief Constable of the Dumfries and Galloway Constabulary, other members of the emergency services, voluntary workers and local residents. The soldier who lost both legs in an IRA car bomb attack at Colchester Barracks is awarded the British Empire Medal for his bravery in Beirut. Staff Sergeant Andrew Mudd helped rescue British Embassy staff whose apartments came under heavy fire.
I'm very glad, very happy about the award for the team that was out there, especially, not just himself.
The Oscar-winning actress Maggie Smith is made a Dame of the British Empire. And there's a knighthood for the former Liberal leader David Steele. The sportsmen honoured include an OBE for the England soccer captain Brian Robson. Frank Bruno, the boxer currently starring in a London pantomime, receives an MBE.
It's very nice, you know, because I started out as a building worker on the building site as a metal polisher, and to be here at the Dominion doing the show and to get an award like that is unbelievable, you know. It makes me blush, but I couldn't blush under these lights because it gives me a little bit of top-up at the moment.
That's the BBC News tonight. Good night.
Well, it's that holy and chilly time of the year when the BBC, for reasons best known to itself, comes leaping out of the closet, opens the books.
Terry Wogan opens the doors of the BBC for a grand tour behind the scenes. See for yourself next Sunday at 8:05 on BBC One.
Good evening. If you saw for yourself any sunshine today, you were quite lucky. If you see any tomorrow, you'll be equally lucky because it does look like staying cloudy and quite cold in many parts of the British Isles. Now, there are some pockets of rain moving into Cornwall at the moment. They'll continue feeding northwards up through West Wales into Northern Ireland as we go through tonight, but most of it's going to be very light rain. Just the odd patch of drizzle in central and eastern parts. The clearest weather for a time up in the northeast of Scotland, where it may well turn a little bit misty. You'll certainly get the lowest temperatures there around about -3 degrees, so quite a sharp frost once again. But for many central and eastern districts staying just above freezing with all this cloud cover, out in the west with a freshening wind and thick cloud, well, 3 to 6, no problems at all. Tomorrow's chart looks like this then, with this weather front moving up the western side of the country. That means to say that these outbreaks of rain down in the west country here, Wales and Northern Ireland, will feed northwards as the day goes along. Quite persistent rain, I think, up into the western part of Scotland later in the day, and turning to sleet and snow up on the higher ground late in the day, but probably not lasting too long before reverting back to rain. Now, there is the indication of some brighter weather coming up off France later on tomorrow, some brighter weather then into the south of England later in the afternoon, but it will be a very fleeting glimpse of the sun, I would think. Most places staying cloudy once again. Quite windy in the west here, approaching gale force, I would think, by tomorrow evening. Temperatures highest in the west, about 8:46 Fahrenheit, but not necessarily feeling all that mild. 3 or 4 the best on offer over in eastern England, so feeling quite cold there. The weather chart for New Year's Day looks like that, with a weather front lying across Britain. That means to say outbreaks of rain and sleet clearing with brighter weather following.
Waterfront Beat, a new police series with a Dockland setting.
Last year, there was a public fuss about the need to police the new waterfront development. We gave a public undertaking that we would rise to that challenge.
High-speed chase, guns, the lot.
It's all up here in this game, Sergeant. We've got to work together or not at all, clear?
Who's he when he's at home? My divisional commander.
God help you.
A new season of drama, Waterfront Beat, starts next Saturday at 8 on BBC1.
In an hour and a half here on BBC One, we'll be meeting the American stand-up comedian Jackie Mason, a former rabbi who imparts his humorous observations on life, sex, people and the planet. And to the 11:15. Before which DJ Jack Killian becomes the mouthpiece for a killer who's using the airwaves for evil means in a special feature-length Midnight Caller.